This is not a ride sharing. This is not a ride sharing video. This is not a ride sharing video. Once again, it is your boy Tim, the handsome liberal. Hopefully we can get a connection. Honestly, I'm free up a bit. But today we're going to be talking about none other than 43-year-old Anthony Dwayne McRae. And the reason we're bringing up the name of this individual is because yet again, here we are in 2023, and we've had yet another mass casualty event, this time at Michigan State, with a casualty total currently of 3 with 5 additional students wounded. The question we're going to start out asking is, are mass casualty events simply the new norm in America? Do we actually want this stuff to stop? Have we become so accustomed to losing students in school to gunfire that it is simply part of the new norm, the way of life in America? Now, make no mistake about it, this is a uniquely American problem. Students going to school and losing their lives while class is in session is something that is uniquely American. There are countries on this planet that are pro-firearm. There are countries that are against firearms. However, when it comes to students losing their lives while class is in session, that is a uniquely American problem. Leading to the obvious question, do we want this to stop? And if we do, what the hell have we done? What are we actually doing to tackle this and give the impression that we do care, that we do want it to stop? Because I'm not seeing that, but we want to tackle that. By the way, folks, tap the screen, show your boy some love. 5,000 likes, 400 plus of us in here. This is a MAGA friendly program. MAGA are my preferred guests. Nevertheless, liberals are welcome. Regardless if you agree or disagree with the host, never means a damn thing here. I give you plenty of time in the box to state your point without any fear of censorship of being banned. However, do we want to stop this? Now, I give you plenty of time in the box to state your point without any fear of censorship of being banned. However, do we want to stop this? Now, 2019, he was caught carrying a concealed weapon without a permit. He got some probation and a misdemeanor, but for the most part, that didn't even stop him from having the ability to purchase firearms. This is indeed the 67th mass shooting in America yet this year alone. Mass shooting being defined as 4 or more folks gunned down in one event by one guy. This is the 67th mass shooting. In terms of schools, this is the 12th one this year. We're in mid-February. We've had 12 mass casualty events already this year. So I don't know what the projection is. What would that put us on course for? But when you look at the fact that we're only 6 or 7 weeks into the year and we've had 12 already in a 52-week year, there is no denying the number of the outcoming number or the predicted number is going to be astonishing. Is there anyone watching that believes this is going to taper off on its own? We've had 12 already. You believe the rest of the year is going to be lighter? For what reason? So here is the testimony of the father, because this, I want to say shooter or whatever, trying to avoid TikTok censors going off, but the guy who is responsible for this event, 43 years of age, living with his dad. I don't know if that's a red flag or not, but a healthy 43-year-old man living with his father is something to note. According to the dad, he spent long stretches of time in his bedroom playing video games and rejected suggestions to have a talk, attend church, go fishing. The father stated he just started getting bitter and kind of tripping and bugging out. Now, that's the father's own statement. The father is cooperating with authorities, but we have to ask the question, does the father have any responsibility if he knows his grown son, who is in possession of a firearm, is starting to act flaky? Not flaky enough to be committed to any facility, not flaky enough to be charged with any crimes, but just acting a bit different than he normally does. Does the father have any responsibility at all to do anything about this? Because that is the question we're going to ask. And I'll go right to the box. But the question we're asking is, if you were watching this from the outside, if you were not an American citizen, but you had information about the amount of mass casualty events happening in this country, based on what you were seeing watching this from the outside, is there anything that would lead you to believe America actually cares about solving that problem? And if so, what are they doing? So going straight to the comments. If father is a criminal for sending their child to public school, wow. Seriously? You think public school is so bad it should be a crime to send your child there? Politicians don't want to fix the problem, says Dimeback. Why not? Why would a politician want this type of event to continue happening in the United States when many of them themselves are receiving death threats? Keep in mind, Nancy Pelosi's husband is only with us because perhaps that guy did not have a firearm. Going to the box. If we can get TikTok to work right, it is Alamar 43. Welcome back to the program, Alamar. Do we want to solve this? Do we actually care about this?
Well, I mean, I think that we should care about this. If you don't, why would you not care about this, right?
Right.
I think one of the problems, though, that I have with a lot of the way that we view stats and things, so you said that there was, what'd you say, 64 mass shootings, and it's reported by 4 or more?
67 mass four or more. Not talking about in the hood where somebody blasts their gangbanger friend. We're talking 4 or more at one time, 12 in schools.
But of those 64, how many of those were in, like you said, the hood blasting gangbangers, where there was a group of them all standing there on the corner and they wiped them all out? I think that that's probably a large portion of them. We hear about all of the school ones, which schools ones are completely tragic, and we need to figure out how to fix that for sure, right?
Well, let's look at it this way. Let's assume all 67 were gangbanger on gangbanger. We can put that in a separate pile. 12 school shootings in only 6 or 7 weeks of the year? That alone is a huge issue.
I 100% agree with that. So then it comes down to, which, I don't have all the right answers. It's just, you got all the questions out there. They're gun-free zones. Is that really working? Do you look at maybe changing that? I don't know if that makes the problem better or worse, but I do know that, if you're in Europe, right, if you're in like England, they have a very much lockdown approach on having firearms and having firearms in your home and things like that. So if you look at B&E in England, it's through the roof. Where compared to here, we don't have as much B&E in the home because people don't know, is there a 12 gauge behind that door that I walk in?
I don't know if I would agree that we don't have a lot of breaking and enterings in America. You think we have a pretty good control on breaking and enterings in this country?
No, I'm not saying it's perfect by any means. I'm just saying it's a lot lower than what you see in England. When you look at
but according to what you're saying, we're essentially trading a lower B&E rate for a higher mass casualty event rate at school. So we're protecting our homes, but losing our children on the back end. Is that a good trade?
Well, but remember, I started the whole phrase with, that's now a gun-free zone. So the question is, do you make it not a gun-free zone? I'm not saying that that's what we should definitely do, but, people's homes are not gun-free zones, and so B&E is down compared to England. So I'm just trying to correlate those two.
Yeah, fair enough. So when you look at schools like Parkland, where there was an armed police officer on the scene when it took place, and he ran and cowered and hid. We talk about Uvalde, where there were dozens of officers who hung on the outside of the school for, I think, 77 minutes or something crazy like that. Even if we armed every employee in the school, how do we know we can trust them to be brave enough to take on somebody who don't mind dying in the process?
That's a great question, right? I mean, obviously, I don't agree with any of that stuff, and maybe it's I don't remember the exact numbers, but somebody talked about that there was I think it was maybe the first payment over to Ukraine or something like that was how many ever billions dollars they took that. What if we applied that to all the schools and it basically came down? You could hire a staff of 4 or 5 full-time people for every single school that we have in the United States that could be fully dedicated to that, and make those people would be making like $80,000 to $100,000 a year, or
That's it.
something like that.
I mean, that's a possible solution. But let me ask it to you this way, because when you look at students going to schools, public schools, private schools around the world, we seem to be the only country that has this problem. If you were viewing this from the outside, do you believe there's any reason at all
Hey,
to suggest that?
I'm sorry, I got to run. I'm at work, and you caught me with the guest again. I'll
All
talk to
right,
you later.
fair
Good
enough.
talk with you, man.
Anytime, anytime. We'll go right back to the boxes. I wanted to follow that. By the way, folks, as always, this is a MAGA-friendly program. We don't ban, block, or censor anyone for their commentary. You don't have to agree with the host. Nobody gives a damn about that. Your opinions are protected just as much as my own, so I do value your opinions. Looking in the comments, we have this problem because we have too many guns. That is what a lot of us on the left are saying, but I want to hear from folks on the right as well. Let me ask to you this way. Carlos, post your question in there. I'll go ahead and we'll go ahead and continue. But let's go straight to the box. A uniquely American problem, in my opinion. Dimebag. Always a pleasure to see Dimebag in the comments. But now we have, hopefully, Dimebag on the live. Good afternoon, Dimebag.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Good to have, yeah, loud and clear. Good to have you on, man. So, if you were viewing this from the outside, let's say you lived in Germany or you lived in Scotland somewhere, and you were privy to information about the U.S. news and all of the casualty events we have here. Do you see any reason for an outsider to believe that we actually care about what's going on? Are we doing anything at all to tackle this epidemic of children being shot in school?
No, nothing's being done, and here's why I say that. If you go to the police station for any reason at all, to go up to the counter, you have to pass through a metal detector. If you go to the airport, you go through a metal detector. If you go to the courthouse, metal detector. So any of these places of business like this, we're sending people through metal detectors, but yet our kids, we just throw them into a building and we just hope that they're safe. And that doesn't work today. It may have worked back in the 60s, 70s, 80s.
Yeah, but the issue is around the world, students are able to go to school without going through metal detectors. Why is it that American students need to go through these devices when other students are not, and they're not losing their lives? Dimebag, did I lose you?
No, I'm still here.
Yeah.
America is not what America used to be.
What changed?
America just took a bad turn.
What changed? What do you think caused that turn?
Too much hate over here. There's just too much hate. We did away with insane asylums. So now instead of having people that are messed up in the head, instead of having them in facilities to get help, they're out here on the streets walking around.
Yeah.
We create our own problems, but yet we don't deal with our problems.
So let me ask you this. If you believe there's a significant amount of hate in this country and we have a big mental health issue, how do you feel about the fact that it's fairly easy in that environment where there's a lot of hate and a lot of mental health? In that environment, it's very easy for citizens to obtain firearms.
Well, they still have to go through the background check. And if they can pass the background check, then You can't stop them from having a firearm.
Yeah, but
And
what
say
background check screens you against hate?
there is none. There
Right.
really is. There really is
So
none that can
knowing
screen you against hate.
Right. So knowing if you're citing us hating each other as part of the reason this is happening, while admitting we do nothing to screen against hate. So I'm asking you, is it smart to give everyone the right to own a firearm in that environment where one of the problems has no screening against?
If a bad person wants to get a gun, they're going to get a gun, no matter what.
You think they don't have too many bad people in Japan? I mean, they're not getting guns over there.
No, they have other ways to do away with people, like
So,
Australia. You don't hear
right.
about a lot. You don't hear about a lot of mass killing by guns in Australia, but you'll hear about a lot of stabbing.
So you're saying that in Australia, where they do not have firearms, they're finding other ways to commit mass casualty events at schools similar to America.
Yes.
Okay, I lived in Australia for 5 years, being candid. They don't have students being killed in schools like that. It's not even remotely close.
Five
12
years.
mass
5
casualty
years.
events already this year? You think Australia's on par with that?
5 years when?
I moved back in 2010.
Okay, that was how many years ago now? 13 years ago.
Yeah, we were having mass casualty events in the 2000s. I mean, Columbine is 1999. We were having mass casualty events at that time.
So you don't think that that's actually happening over there?
I don't think they've had anywhere 12 students, four or more, 12 different times, four students or more has been shot in an American school. You're telling me in Australia, 12 different times, they've had four students stabbed, blew up with a bomb or whatever other method they use already this year? No, that has not happened. I don't think it's happened once, not even one time.
I don't know if it has this year or not. I'm
It
just
hasn't
saying that.
happened at
I'm just
all,
saying
not
that
even
those.
one time.
I'm just saying that those that want to do harm will find a way to do harm.
Well, but the point I guess I'm trying to make to you is that you're right. A person, if they really want to harm somebody, they can. But when you look at these countries where they do not have firearms, they're not finding these other ways. They're not doing that, which is why the other caller brought up breaking and enterings in other countries. People they're not losing their lives in school like they are in America. I don't know any country on the planet that has a comparable amount of students losing their lives while classes in session. I can't think of even some of the third world countries, maybe Ukraine because they're at war, but I can't think of a single country. You think Australia is really on par with us?
I'm just saying that I've looked it up before, and Ukraine does have a lot, or Australia does have a lot of stabbings because they can't get guns.
Right. Yeah, I would encourage you to just simply do your research on Australia and see how many mass stabbing events in schools you come up with. It's not. I would say the 12 we've had this year probably is more than they've had in the last 10 plus years. It's just not happening over there like that. But I don't know where you're getting the information, but if you can prove me wrong, you're always welcome back anytime. And I will concede the point. But Dimebag, I do got to move it on, man. You know how we do it here.
All right, you have a good one. Thank you.
You too. You too. All right, look in comments. MAGA people are not helping because they are racist and homophobic because religion is the backbone. I don't know if having a phobia or even not liking African Americans is going to, I don't think that has anything to do with the mass casualty events we're discussing here. But if you can show me how they're tied together, we can discuss it, because this guy in Michigan State the other day, his victims are both black and white. So I don't know, certainly he don't fit the profile of someone who was racist or homophobic. So I don't know if that alone is going to address this. But we'll keep it moving. Mass stabbings. How many knives? He's got to be actually throwing knives in order for that to happen. That's not true. Who was that? Justin. There are cases where there have been mass stabbings and the killer was not throwing knives. It's just how quick you can get to the people. I think there was one in Paris recently. There was one on a subway train, I think, here in the United States. It has happened, but to nowhere near the number of shootings. It's not even in the same universe. Now, I suppose we can bring up other countries that do not have firearms because there's no firearm data to compare it to. But in terms of mass casualty events, 4 or more, yeah, it is quite challenging to do that with a knife compared to with a firearm. I don't know how that works. I believe the government are behind a lot of these shootings. Based on what, Chris? Let me go back to the box. I won't blow V8 too long. As always, MAGA friendly, no banning, no censor. Tap the screen. Get your boy up to 10,000 likes. 800 plus of us in here. Could be anywhere on social media you want to be. The fact that you're here with your boy is an honor. We will go straight to Cleve Dog. Think we have talked before. Cleve, good afternoon. Back to the program. Good afternoon, Cleve.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. We're talking about, unfortunately, yet another mass casualty event, this time location Michigan. Do we want this to end?
I hate to say it like this, but I hate it. We need it to end, but it won't end. I hate that because,
but
we had.
Are we making any effort?
Huh? Say again?
Are we actually making any effort to get it to end?
Well, no matter how hard you try to control it, you can't, because somebody's gonna dislike other people, regardless of how bad the government or how bad the state want to end this. And I say that because we had it at Michigan State, then we had it in California, where the guy went in and shot up a dance hall. He was Asian, and the people that he shot was Asian. But if you look at Oslo, Norway, which Netflix did a special on.
That's when they lost their firearm rights after Oslo. I know what you're talking about. Keep going.
Yeah, but see, it won't end. That's the point. It won't end. No matter how bad it looks or how bad you might think, or no matter what kind of laws you throw at it, this type of situation won't end.
If it won't end, why is it only happening here? It doesn't seem to be happening in most countries around the world.
Well, in Japan, if you go to Japan and see, the former president got shot. Not the president,
he was
the prime minister.
Yeah, the former prime minister got shot with someone who created a self-made gun, and he was the second person in that country to get shot in the entire year. They had 2 shootings in that country in a whole year. That's the example you're using.
But Japan is still is it not still hard to get a firearm, whether you make it or not?
It's extremely difficult to get a firearm in Japan.
Exactly. So it won't stop, no matter how hard or what kind of law you might throw at it. Whether you only get rid of not shotguns, but semi-automatic weapons, you still have shotguns, or you still have certain other weapons. It won't stop.
So let's take in other words, it won't stop. It's always going to happen. And I do agree with you. But what if you pass laws, and even though it didn't stop, we went from what we're having now to only 2, like in Japan. It didn't stop in Japan, but only 2. Would you consider that an improvement?
No, it won't stop, period.
I get that. But what if you could greatly reduce it by about 80 to 90%? Would you consider that a success?
How would you reduce it?
I'm telling you, Japan has only had 2 in 1 year.
With red flag laws?
How about just simply not being able to get the firearm? That's what they're using to do it with.
It won't happen. It won't happen because Japan, despite Japan, and I love Japan, but the people there are different from the people here in the United States. we
So
have
is
different.
it just a matter of Americans like shooting people?
No, America. I wouldn't say that. We have differences. That what makes us unique. But also, to those differences, people have the right and ability to pursue their happiness, and
Right.
whether it's firearms or whether it's some kind of art or whether you're a singer or a dancer or a painter, you have that right here. In other countries, you forget about France, you forget about the UK, you forget about other places where it's extremely hard to have a gun, and they still have mass shootings. Matter of
Uh,
fact, in
so
France
you
a couple of years
believe
ago,
so you believe students in France and students in the UK are equally on par to lose their lives in the classroom just like
no,
Americans. They're just
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that at all. What I'm agreeing with is no matter what you do to curb it here in the United States, you can't do it. How would you go about trying to stop someone from having a firearm? You can't
I would.
sue. You sue the manufacturers? That's stupid. We have laws against that.
Well, that's what we're talking about. Perhaps maybe changing the laws. But let's take it from your standpoint, where it's not going to stop. So, knowing it's not going to stop, what do we do? Just accept it as the norm?
No, we don't accept it as the norm. You try to weed it out the best way you can. And
How?
as one, you stop all these stupid programs, that buyback programs that the government try to put out and the states try to put out and the communities try to put out. Two, you have to have the right amount of screening when a person want to purchase a firearm. That person who doing the paperwork and stuff has the power to stop a sale no matter what. And a lot of people don't see it as such, but they have that power right there. If you
So,
don't,
what if you, okay, but when the person, as you say, the person that has the power to stop a sale, what if they're just liberal and they don't believe anybody should have an AK-47 or an AR-15?
no,
Should they?
no,
Okay, so
that's
what's the
discrimination.
criteria? What is the
That's
criteria they have to use to stop the sale?
Well, first of all, illegal straw purchasing, stop that. Two, that person or individual can see if that person is not in their right mind.
How so?
Type of frame.
I mean,
If that
you're trying to
person,
make gun salesmen into Dr. Phil. They're not
no,
psychiatrists.
it's not Dr. Phil. It's gun purchases. If you have a scraggly individual that comes into this, if you're behind the counter selling a gun, if you have an individual that comes in high, not in his right mind, type of frame, you can cancel that sale right there. If you have a person that comes in and talks about things like, well, I'm going to take this gun I'm not hunting with it, but I'm going to take it to do stupid stuff with, that's a stop of a sale.
Yeah, but
And there's
who
other
does
things.
that? Okay, we got a guy in Ubalde that killed dozens of children at the age of 18. Most of these folks who do this, they're not going to go into a gun store smoking weed, talking a bunch of shit. I agree that that's a good way to screen, but that ain't going to stop anything because
But
most
but
people purchasing guns don't do that stuff.
but how does a 18-year-old come up with like $2,200 to buy a gun? And I know the gun that the kid bought because I'm an adult and I have two of them
Okay.
from that same
So let me
manufacturer.
ask you this. Let me ask you this in regards to the point you just made. If and I'll ask you folks in the comments by way of yes or no in the comments. If a person turns 18, let's say they've been working at Burger King, McDonald's, or whatever the hell else while they were 16 and 17. At the day they turn 18, they use money they saved up and they walk in and they want to buy an AR-15 and 1,000 rounds of ammunition and multiple magazines. Should they be allowed to complete that sale if they do not have any history of mental health or any criminal background check? Should an 18-year-old that just turned 18 be able to receive that hardware? Cleve dog.
I would say yes, but
Okay.
the government, when you're doing a background check, It's the government. The government has the overall say of a person or individual that can buy a gun, regardless. It has to
But
go through a NICS
they
check.
have to base it on something. They have to actually say, the government is invoking its right not to give you guns based on something. There has to be something there.
Okay, that's true. It has to be something there. Then, they'll stop the sale and put a 3-day wait on that sale, and they can do a further in-depth investigation of that individual. But when it comes back 3 days later and they haven't done anything, that individual can still buy that gun.
Yeah, and based on what you're saying, I don't see how what we've talked about would stop any of these events at schools, because every single one of these killers would pass your background check. Is this
Well,
all we need to do?
well, even if it gets past the person who is selling the gun or the pew pew, that individual still has to be background checked, and the government, when it goes through a NICS background check, they have the overall say.
Okay. The point I'm trying to make is this: most of that stuff is being done, and the problem is not going away. The point I'm trying to make is the status quo is not stopping this stuff. Everything you mentioned, they're doing that, and it's not stopping this stuff.
Well, so how do you stop it? How would you, if you had the power to stop it, what would you do?
I would follow the pattern of the countries that do not have a lot of people getting shot. I would do what they're doing. It seems to be working in these countries. By the way, let me make this point. Let me make this point as well. The ability to make ghost guns, the ability to vote candidates into office and vote legislation is active in all of these other countries. So say Norway, New Zealand banned guns, England, all of these countries. If they believe that having a right to own a firearm kept them safe, they all have the right to vote the politicians in office to get their gun rights reinstated. They're not doing that for some reason. Why is that?
Don't know. That's the $1 million question. But the problem is, the problem is, if you circumvent somebody's right to own a firearm, that is a constitutional offense.
Yeah.
According to the United States Second Amendment, they have people who are free have the right to purchase a firearm. Now, the problem is, if that person you selling the firearm is he or she in their right mind? Don't know. So you can't circumvent the Second Amendment to appease a certain statistic of a mass shooting. You can't do that.
Okay, fair enough. Hey, Cleve, I gotta move it on. Good conversation. Right. Come on back through as usual, man. Good talk.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Fair enough. Now, what the gentleman there was stating, I'll go right back to the box. That's pretty much the common response. We do have Second Amendment rights. We do have the right to bear arms. Yours truly, I carry. But nevertheless, I don't see, listening to the conversation that I've had on numerous of these events, I don't see how you can have the Second Amendment and have children safe in schools in the same conversation. I think a product of the Second Amendment is this type of stuff happening, which is why I'm asking the question, do we care about this happening? Because generally our response has been, anytime a mass casualty event has happened, instead of doing anything about what happened, the response has been, let's secure gun rights. We lost 20 students at Sandy Hook. I know the liberals are going to go for guns. Let's go over here and protect guns. What about the kids? Let's go protect guns. And that is what has happened, is we always rush to protect guns after any of these casualty events, which is what we're discussing right now. Now, I don't see any other way. I just do not see. I think a product of allowing everybody to drive is going to be a certain amount of accidents every year. A product of giving everybody the right to a gun is what we're talking about now. Going to the box. Appreciate you folks holding on. Always a pleasure. We'll keep it moving with Hooper Cooper. Good afternoon. To the program. By the way, folks, tap the screen. Get your boy up to 15,000. Plenty of you folks in here, MAGA-friendly audience. As always, liberals are welcome as well. Hooper, good afternoon.
Hey, nice to talk to you again, there, driver. Yeah,
Absolutely a pleasure.
I want to say something that it kind of bothers me. These mass shootings, we see them here, we see them there, but the product of those mass shootings always come from students that out of the home. You know what I'm saying? These parents have these guns, and they don't lock them up, or they don't even search their kid's room or whatever. You know what I'm saying? They don't have
No,
that
I
early.
don't. I don't know if I would agree. There's some of these folks are buying their own weapons. The guy in Ubalde, like I mentioned in the example, he turned 18 and bought that weapon himself. I believe the guy who did this in Michigan yesterday or the day before, whenever, that was his own weapon. They're using their own stuff as well. The guy in the subway in Buffalo, New York, that was his weapon. They're buying their own stuff.
Well, well, you got these secondhand buyers out there. You know what I'm saying? That's the reason why New York is so strict with these gun laws, or they're checking. They got these checkpoints because when you go across the state line, or say you go put it down in Virginia and you buy a gun down there, you can sell that gun for 3 times, 4 times much up in New York because
Yeah.
it's a hot item. You know what I'm saying? And you got these young guys. You know what I'm saying? Hey, they do their side hustle. They got the access to that. They know who sells them. You know what I'm saying? But the thing is, there's in these schools, it should be the airport type security in these schools with metal detectors when you walk through the door. Certain checkpoints before they even come in the school building. And I think that what I'm saying, the access is not the seller per se. The gun shop. It's the seller outside the gun shop, the one that
Yeah.
has the access to
Yeah, but
all
let me
these
let me
items.
ask you this question. Do we feel so strongly about preserving the Second Amendment that as opposed to doing any type of alteration to the Second Amendment, we would rather opt to turning our schools into Fort Knox? You're talking about airport security, locking all the rooms. I mean, is that our love of the Second Amendment so strong that we're willing to put our children in Fort Knox to keep that amendment in place?
I think that would be a good idea. I really do. I mean, that's just like this country now. Where everybody in the United States are very unaware of what's really going on. They're going on every day without knowing what's going to happen. You know what I'm saying? And 9 times out of 10, everybody doesn't have a gun. They don't. They're riding in their car. They can't carry a gun. You go across state lines if you got a gun. Then
But
they're
let's address the obvious elephant in the room. You can't turn everywhere into Fort Knox. The school bus can be taken out. The kids at recess can be taken out, which is why a lot of children nowadays are getting fat because they don't even have recess anymore. We're getting to the point where we're afraid to let our children navigate through society because our society has gotten so damn dangerous. So you can't turn everywhere. Your kid goes to the mall, it could happen. Like I said, your kid's on a public bus or on a school bus. You can't turn every aspect of your child's life into Fort Knox.
That's true. That's really true. But it's sad, that you have to subject your conversation to that in that direction because you got a lot of kids that they're antisocial because they are scared to go out into the community and have fun and be a kid. Some neighborhoods you can't even walk down the street without a drive by here, drive by there, because everybody's trying to show their wit and their power. But
Yeah.
it's the secondhand seller. I could not put that on a pawn shop or a gun salesman that has license,
But where does the
because
second, yeah, but even if you want to blame the second-hand seller, one of the things you often hear is if you ban guns, a criminal will always be able to get a gun on the streets. What you never hear folks ask the question of is where do the streets get their weapons? The point I'm trying to make is even if you attack the secondhand sellers, what we need to realize is that it is indeed the legal gun owners at the top of this pyramid supplying everyone with their weapons because ultimately any gun that's found in the hands of a criminal, if you trace it back, it was either bought, stolen or found from somebody who originally owned it legally. It is the legal gun owners supplying all the bad guys with guns.
That's true. I mean, that's true. I mean, I'll say this right here. You know, back in the day when me and you were coming up, you were able to ride with your shotgun in the back window. You know what I'm saying? That's the era that I was in. You know.
Yeah.
Now, somebody sees that gun in there, they're gonna break in there and get it. You know what I'm saying? That's a second. That's a second. What do you call it? Second seller. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but back in the day, we could make homophobic slogans like the F word. We could let children ride in the back window with that pistol without a seatbelt on. What happened to evolution? A lot of these other countries, they could own guns and things like that as well. But as times changed, it became more dangerous. Many of these other countries have evolved and changed their laws so that their children are not getting smoked at schools. Are we just refusing to evolve?
Yep. Yeah, we are. We are.
Yeah. That's a sad state.
That is very sad. You know, and what you got most of these politicians, and I won't go into extent, but you know, they're in gated communities. They're well protected. You know, and they don't care about what the American citizen as a whole, as far as in the communities going through drive-bys or robberies or strong arm robberies. They don't care about that because they're not in that predicament at the time. You know what I'm saying? They're all about the money. Remington makes millions and millions of dollars. You know what I'm saying? It's a money flow situation. It's a chain reaction. You know, and as long as they sit up there and worry about the money, which is going to be washed away, you know, it's going to always be a problem. There's no solution to it because you can't just cut and say, well, we got to, just like you said, we got to strong arm all the schools or put a metal detector at the end of a red light. You know what I'm saying? Who's got a gun? But the background checks, you know, is the first defense. But the second-hand seller is always going to win. They're always going to win, whether it comes from New Mexico or whether it comes from New York. The second-hand seller is always going to win. And the access to these young people getting these guns is all about hustling and getting the money to get it because that's what they want. They want that fascist state to say, oh, I got an AR-15 or I got a Glock 40. You know, they going to move with the system because they're able to do it.
As long as, and that's the thing. I got to move it on, but as long as there always are weapons out there to get, they can always, as you say, move with the system. At the end of the day, you got to turn off the spigot of weapons. As long as it's out there, What's happening, as you admitted, although America is refusing to evolve, the criminals are constantly evolving. So that's probably where the problem is. But I got to move it on, Hooper. Appreciate you coming in.
Thanks for talking to me, man. I appreciate it. See you next time.
Absolutely. Look, comments. Man, at least I'm not talking about politics. Can't even have a good day. Everyone out miserable. Fair enough. When the government doesn't have weapons, then we can talk. You know, I don't know. Do we see government officials in this country? Because I understand one of the products of owning a firearm, or one of the reasons, is to stave off tyranny. Personally, being a liberal, you know, doing my little sideshow analysis, I will tell you that the idea of owning a gun protects us from a tyrannical government like, say, Stalin or Hitler or Saddam Hussein. I think it's utterly laughable. And I give you the solid example of the fact that, you know, for most of America's history, African Americans and many minorities did not have rights, could not vote. Women couldn't vote, couldn't own their own bank account. I would submit to you that America has been tyrannical. Most of the time, we have had the right to own firearms. Women only got the right to vote in 1920, well over 100 years after the Second Amendment was put in place. Blacks did not get the right to vote in many places nearly 200 years after the Second Amendment was already in place. So the idea that having a firearm protects you against a tyrannical government literally goes against American history. They're just ridiculous amounts of examples that America has been a tyrannical nation the entire time. So it doesn't make any sense. But we're going back to the box. Whiskey Golf. I always forget what those acronyms stand for. But I hate guns. I'm guns, but I carry one. Why? Because you probably feel safer. Whiskey Golf. Good afternoon.
Hey, how you doing, buddy? It's good to hear from you again.
But good to hear from you again as well. Now you're running for office, right?
I'm a two-time congressional candidate. Yes, I'm
Okay.
no longer in the political world, but yes.
Well, if you happen to have been a representative, how would you tackle what we're dealing with?
First, we got to, I believe anyway, address the mental stability of people. Now, I got full disclosure. I am a contractor and I work at MSU. I'm out here right now at Michigan State University campus. I've talked to several students. It's really an emotional thing, especially for me. I've been out here for 20 years. I went to school. This really hits home for me. So it's a very touchy subject. But
My condolences, man. What
my
is
condolences. These kids, man.
putting your ear to the ground there? I mean, I know
Yeah,
where Governor Whitmer stands on this, but how do you
sure.
feel about the proliferation of guns in this country?
Well, off the hip, I feel, and I've felt this for a long time, that I myself, I'm an avid hunter. I'm a gun owner. I have a concealed weapons permit. And when I feel that people are coming after my legal ownership to solve a different issue, yeah, I see how a lot of people, get defensive and a little apprehensive about that. However, we're ignoring the mental condition in which drives a person to deliver themselves to this. Now, we've seen the Christmas Day parade where the gentleman drove through a crowd of people with a car.
Yeah,
Are we going to start
yeah.
banning cars? So the problem is the mental stability of the person. Are you a God-fearing person, if I may ask?
I was raised a Christian. I don't know
Okay,
if I can really answer that question with a bit of certainty. I believe
sure,
something's
okay.
there, but I don't know.
Yeah, so we've all heard of the Ten Commandments, and I believe the
Yeah,
sixth one says, "Thou shalt not kill."
right.
Well, the commandments were wrote down approximately, and they're arguably, people say different years, but about 2,000 years before Christ. Gunpowder was not discovered or invented until China in the year 1200. So obviously, when they wrote those commandments, people were killing people back then too. It's man's somewhat innate drive to harm mankind. This is the
Yeah,
issue.
but
The
you're
guns,
giving me you're giving me a mankind argument for a
sure,
problem that
sure,
seems to be uniquely American. Children going to school
you're
around
right.
around the world are not losing their lives in classrooms. I mean, do you think that
You're
children
absolutely
in
right.
other first world countries are dying in classrooms as on an on an equivalency of American students?
No, I do not. And this is what I mean by the mental conditioning. The gun is not the problem; it's the person behind the gun using it. Now, if in one way you could argue that if they removed all the signs that said "gun-free school zone" and put a sign up that said "every teacher is packing, f around and find out," there'd be fewer people tempted to go. If they find a safe haven to commit their crimes. Do you know what the biggest school massacre, the largest school massacre in U.S. history, happened in a small town right near here called Bath, Michigan? It was in 1927. A local farmer, of course, was upset with the government. They were raising taxes on his farm. So he firebombed his own house, murdered his wife, loaded up his truck with dynamite, went and blew up the Bath school, killing 23 kids, several adults. Still to this date is the largest school massacre. That was with dynamite. And I'm granted,
Yeah,
we,
but
we can't own
but
dynamite,
first of
but
all, let me respond to some of this. In regards to
sure,
the F around and find out, if you put, beware of gun signs on schools,
sure.
if having a gun made folks think twice about, dealing with you or trying to take your life, then why do so
Hmm.
many cops get shot? Having a gun does not deter folks. It just lets them
That's
know if I
correct.
want to do this, I got to shoot you first.
That's correct because that person, that individual, has become to the mental status where they don't care about their own lives. They don't value their own lives. We have to change this narrative to make people care about their lives and everybody else's. The gun is not the issue. If you can take all the guns away, take them away. These people that want to commit harm to fellow human beings will still find a way to do it. Dynamite to the school, a car
So
through a parade.
why is it in countries where they have taken away guns, Australia, recently
Hmm.
New Zealand, Norway in '96, why aren't they having incidents where people are going into schools with dynamite? Why aren't they
Absolutely.
finding other ways than doing that?
Absolutely. And I think you've already answered that question when you said that America is unique in this aspect of school fatalities and mass shooting fatalities. We are
How
also
so?
unique in media manipulation. Every time you put something out, it's always bad this and bad that. And I think they drive the human psyche down to a point to where it's disparity, and they keep people sort of under these thumbs. And see, other countries don't do that. Other countries promote unity and living alongside one another. Every time you turn on the news, it's bad, it's negative. We hate each other. We have to be at odds. If we would stop these narratives and actually help, with the positive messages and keep people united and
So
educate people in a different way, I think we'd have a different result. That's just my
So
opinion.
it so in taking into consideration what you stated, where we
Sure.
got mental health issues and we're promoting division, and leading to people hating each other. In that
Yes.
environment, do you think it's a good idea to make it easier for people to get guns, knowing that there's a lot of people hating
Oh
each
no.
other and the media is promoting all this? You think it's a good idea to make it easier to get guns?
I am pro 2A, but the Second Amendment was wrote in a different time. We don't live in that time anymore. So to make it easier, absolutely hell no. Not make it easier, okay? We have to deliver ourselves to a different level of sort of mental consciousness in order to behave yourself in order to maintain these, because we don't live in that world anymore. Back then you could duel it out in the street and that was okay. In the Wild West, you could have a gunfight and that was okay, that was justified. We don't live in those times anymore. So
So
of course we have
do
to
you
change and
agree?
amend and evolve.
So, how do you feel about the Ubalde killer example I gave, where a child turns 18 and on
Hmm.
their 18th birthday, they've saved up enough money that they want to buy a couple ARs, 1,000 rounds of ammunition, and many magazines, even though that child has no criminal background and no history of mental health? Do you think someone who just turned 18 should be able to get their hands on that kind of hardware?
Well, it doesn't. Yes, I mean the short answer is yes, only because we're Americans and that's our right to do so. It should. Okay, let's say if he wasn't able to get that kind of hardware, let's say he was able to get a 22 revolver, he still would have went and harmed somebody. Is the general point? Would have been in like a mass type thing. It's not okay to harm one person, let alone 10 or 20 or however.
But
One
I
individual
agree
life is
with you.
just as important.
Let me interrupt you to say
Sure.
this. I agree with you that it's not okay to harm one person, 10 versus one. We don't even want one harmed. But if you could
Mhm.
have a situation where instead of 10 people dying, only one died, you don't see any success or anything to benefit to that at all.
Well, as numbers, absolutely. Anybody that says no, honestly, is just not a serious person. Of course,
Yeah.
one is better than 10. But if you were a doctor and you had to kill one healthy person to save five unhealthy ones, I mean, what would you choose? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? It's an ethic type thing. So yeah, of course, one is better than 20, but none is better than one. This is where
Yeah,
we've
but
got to lead
I
to.
think the issue is when we're debating having these type of gun debates,
Sure.
a lot of folks who are pro 2A make it sound like, well, we're never going to get perfection, and I agree with that. The
Yeah.
goal is not perfection. The goal is to try to reduce
Sure.
this stuff.
Yes.
If we could go from every 10 deaths only being one, that would be a huge success. It's never going to be zero. I get that. As you said, people might use knives, bombs, or dynamite.
Hmm.
And as a result, if you put down an AR-15 and have to pick up a knife, you are going to get 10 to 1 type numbers. It's because it is a lot easier to kill a hell of a lot of people with an AR than with a knife, or even with dynamite for that instance, because you got to know where to place it. People can run and
Absolutely.
get away. If you got an AR, running doesn't really help the person get away very much. So you're not going to get zero. But if you
Yeah.
force people to use alternative weapons, you will get a higher survival rate.
Yes, that's absolutely right. And my point is that when they drive and that's the first thing they hit to is just stripping everybody's guns, they're not. What my point is that they're not addressing the issue. There's still the mentality that people are going to want to harm people. That's my only point with that.
Yeah.
gun or not gun. That was
And
my
they're
only
not
point.
going to be, they're going to want to harm people. But if they
Yeah,
have to choose a knife, a baseball bat, or some alternative weapon, even though they want to harm people, they're going to be less successful at doing it because their weapon of choice is nowhere near as efficient at killing. That's the point we're trying to make.
yeah, you're absolutely correct about that.
Yeah. And
Absolutely,
we're
no argument
happy,
about that at all.
and that is the reduction we're seeking. I do got to move it on, though.
Yeah, 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 absolutely.
But but always, you're always welcome back, man. Good talk. All
Good
right,
talking to you.
looking, yeah, looking in the box, psychology tests before you can buy them. But what happens if a spouse or a former lover of some guy says, this dude is crazy. When we were together, he was constantly threatening my life. But did you file police reports? No, I was scared to. I just divorced him. Should her testimony prevent her ex from getting a weapon? That's the problem with psychology tests, is that they start limiting how far you can go with the test. Ron, yeehaw! Appreciate the hat and mustache. 20K, tap the screen. Get your boy up to 25,000 likes. As always, this is a MAGA friendly program. MAGA are my preferred guests, Second Amendment lovers, obviously. Nevertheless, liberals and detractors are always welcome. There is no fear of being banned, blocked, or censorship on any live that I do. Obviously, the TikTok god sometimes has an alternative thought process, but yeah, feel free to come on in the box. I don't censor, ban, or block anyone for their commentary. And if you disagree with the host, nobody gives a damn. All right, going back to the box. It is Bionic Man. Keith, appreciate you. Bionic Man, good afternoon.
How's it going, Tim? I'm ready for the
I
hate.
don't even know, man. Yet another mass casualty event. Do we even care about this shit at this point?
I think everybody cares. It's to the limit on whether everybody cares and what we're willing to do. It's like,
Care in what way, though? I mean, care by saying thoughts and prayers?
well, thoughts and prayers don't do shit.
Thank you.
I mean,
Thank
yeah.
you. Somebody who said it. Somebody saying it. I agree 100%.
I can wave Harry Potter's wand. That ain't going to do anything.
Right.
It's like, and this goes back to, you're going to need both sides to make change. And it doesn't help when you have the commander-in-chief who made a statement during his speech the other night when he said, I'm going to ban assault weapons. The second you say the word ban, you're going to have half of the country turn off, right?
Well, what could someone like Joe Biden say that folks, his detractors, folks on the right would say, okay, maybe we can work with that in terms of addressing school shootings? What could he come up with?
You have to say words like, I need to work with the Republican Party to see if we can come to terms on adjusting maybe age limits for certain types of weapons. It's like, me, you and I have talked about this. I'm a lifetime.
But he get up there and say what you just said. That sounds like I need to work with my ex to get her to lower child support. It's lip service. It's not going to happen. We know if Biden reaches over to them and requests any sort of limitations on firearms at all, even up to and including a lot of mental health and background checks, they're not with any of this shit. So just getting up there and saying what you said, it sounds good, but at the end of the day, that's lip service. Many politicians have said that.
But I think times are changing. I think that more and more people, you have somebody like me, a perfect example, somebody like me, right? I'm a lifetime NRA member.
Okay.
Right? I'm a veteran. I worked for the government for 14 years of my life. 4 years active duty, 10 years as a civilian. Right? It's like, I own ARs. I own 5 of them. I own 3 15s, 2 10s. I've got a whole safe full of like 20, 25 guns.
What are you willing to give up to the liberals?
To me, and I've said this to you before, there needs to be a limitation on age limits. We do it with drinking. We do it with smoking. We do it with all kinds of different things. We do it with being able to get a tattoo.
Okay, so I asked two callers before you. A kid turns 18. He saved up enough money. He wants to buy a couple ARs, mini magazines, 1,000 rounds of ammunition at 18 years of age on his birthday. No mental health history, no criminal history. Do you believe he should be able to get that weapon?
I'm ready for the hate. Absolutely not.
You're going to get the hate. So
18
why
years
not?
old. You're in high school. You're
Yeah,
in high school at 18 years old. It's like these
yeah.
kids are playing video games. They think it's a fucking game. It's like, I'm
Why are there so
sorry.
many,
I'm
as
ready
a
for the hate.
as an NRA member yourself, why do you think there are so many members of your same side that are totally against what you just stated? Because that's where the hate's coming from.
Oh, because they'll turn around and say, well, you can join the military. It's like, I'm a vet. I was trained in these weapons. It's like they didn't just like hand a gun and go ahead and shoot. You
Yeah,
trained on weapons. You were monitored. And guess what? If they found that you were like mentally unstable, you got kicked out.
yeah.
And there were many guys who got kicked out.
So how do you feel being an NRA member, admitting that that's where the hate is going to come from? How do you feel with a lot of liberals, folks like myself, stating that the biggest hurdle to us coming up with a solution is NRA members?
But you see it, and I've talked to many gun owners, and I've talked to NRA guys who are starting to change their tune the more and more you have these school shootings. Where
Well,
it's
shit, how
like,
long do we got
I'm
to,
not,
if they're changing their tune, how many more kids got to die before they actually play the whole damn song? We don't want a tune. We need the whole song in its entirety played. How long is it, like changing their tune obviously is not making this happen soon enough. How long before they actually change the whole song?
I don't know. That's the miracle question, right? I
Damn.
remember, I'm old enough that I remember when they changed the drinking age.
Right.
And I was right on the cusp. I was right on the cusp of, I was able to legally drink at 18. And then they were changing the laws. And in certain states, they were stepping it up 19, 20, 21 to where, so that you were not eliminated in certain states. Some states just jumped it to 21. And then
So
I
what
was on a
age?
military base so that you could still drink on base at
What would
18.
be the age of maturity for you, in your opinion, that you think a person should be able to start owning firearms?
I don't see the problem with somebody owning like a rifle or something like that to go hunt or whatever at 18 years old. But there's, to own like handguns, to own ARs, to me, there's no reason why you should be able to have that at 18 years
Yeah,
old.
but
It's like
isn't
owning
an
at
AR?
21.
Yeah, but
I'm
isn't
not
an
saying that
AR?
you don't have the
But
ability to go shoot it with your dad or an uncle or something like that who's
yeah, but
over the legal age.
isn't an AR a rifle that is often used for hunting feral pigs and things like that?
Yeah, you can do the same thing with a 30-06. You can do it with a bolt action.
So you don't need to have a 30. You don't need to have a semi-auto that fires a hell of a lot of rounds per trigger pull. But you're
Right.
saying you don't need to have a 30-round magazine or even a drum or something like that at 18.
Yeah.
I think if we could,
if you need a 30-round clip to go shoot a deer, you're a horrible shot. I feel bad for the deer.
Okay, but also keep in mind, if you're okay with owning a rifle for hunting, shooting deers and things like that, if you live in the middle of Manhattan, then you would not have the right to own that because if you're living in Manhattan, you're probably not shooting deer. There's no hunting anywhere near there, probably, unless you go into, a rural New York somewhere. But what about the fact that after the 18-year-old goes hunting, he still brings the firearm home with him and puts it on his closet shelf?
Well, like in a lot of states, like in California, where I live, you're not allowed to do that. You have to have it in a secured safe. So here's some of the laws that can be changed. How you secure your weapons, that can be changed. I mean, so that you don't have somebody like even my dad. My dad was a competitive shooter. he had a bunch of weapons. He always had all the
So
weapons
you're
locked up
okay
in the
as
house.
an NRA member. You're okay as an NRA member supporting the law that mandates having your gun in a locked or secure environment.
Sure. When you got kids in the house, absolutely.
Okay, so locked environment, age of maturity being, you said 21 or
And anybody
25.
that says, okay, then I can't protect my house, you have fingerprint safe systems right now that you put your thumb on it, that thing pops open. I can get that gun out of there in literally 2 seconds.
I think you're going to lose your NRA membership talking to me, man. But I
Hey,
gotta
I
move it
got my
on, Bionic
lifetime.
man.
They can't take it away.
Come on back to anytime. You know what we do. Good talk,
Love you,
though.
man.
Hey, and I like the fact that this is a type of dialogue where even though you are a lifetime member, we are able to come up with at least a few concessions.
Because at the end of the day, it's people's lives that are being lost.
Damn right.
It's easy to talk like this when it's not your kid that just lost their life. You know, we're
Damn
all
right.
talking in these hypotheticals. It's really easy for us to talk shit in this chat, making fun of each other, right? On the left and right, when it's not us being affected. My best friend was a senior in high school at Columbine.
Mm, mm. Damn. All right. I got to move it on, Keith. Good talk, man. Damn.
Take care, man.
Appreciate you coming
Love
in.
you.
You always. All right. Now, in the comments, someone said, what the hell? I wanted to read it, but for some reason TikTok is scrolling up. Talked about picking up a gun and defending the children. As I stated before, as a parent, being a parent myself, I'm sure many of you folks tuning in, I do appreciate you being here, are parents. And by the way, tap the screen, get this parent up to 30,000 likes. I'd appreciate that. But being a parent, you know, much as you love your children and want to defend their safety, you cannot be with them every single minute of the day. You have a lot of other obligations, and you have to leave your children's safety oftentimes in the hands of strangers. So the idea of picking up a gun and defending the children, yeah, as a parent, you would gladly be willing to take up arms, risk your life to defend your child. But the child's not going to be with you. Most of the time, during the course of the day, how many hours out of the day, if you got an elementary school child or a high school age child, how many hours out of the day is that kid actually with you? Bedtime, maybe a couple hours in the morning and maybe about 5 hours in the evening. There's about 8 to 10 hours, maybe as many as 12 hours during the day when everybody is awake and navigating around it. That child is outside of your care, which is when all of this shit is mostly happening. So taking up an arm and defending your child, you have the gun on you, but your child is across the street getting shot. So that argument just doesn't match. But going back to the box, appreciate your generosity there, Starfire. We're going to make it happen with Jordan 9-3. Afternoon. I can't always be there to keep my kids out of traffic, but I trust school to do that. Go tell that to the parents of Ubalde or to the parents of children at Parkland, how much trusting a school to defend your child can work out. Jordan, good afternoon.
Thank you so much, sir, for taking my call. I
Appreciate
love
your
this discussion. This is one of my favorites. You know,
it's sad that this has to happen for us to have your favorite discussion, though. This sucks.
this is one of my favorite discussions here.
So what do we do about it?
All right. I mean, I could talk about this. I know you don't have the 4 hours I could
Get it
talk
rolling.
about it.
Get it rolling. So do we actually even care, or are we accepting this as the new norm?
I mean, here's what I think about this. Okay.
Thank you, Fancy. Go ahead.
All right. The Second Amendment right.
Yes.
Right to keep and bear arms. Okay. And banning guns or taking away guns is not going to solve the problem. Why don't
So
we just?
let me interrupt you right away and ask, why has taking away firearms greatly reduced the amount of deaths in these other countries where they did it?
Well, why don't we just take away driver's license?
No, but that doesn't answer the question, though. You're saying taking away firearms won't stop anything, but all
Yeah,
of
it
these other
won't.
countries, then why did it stop it in these other countries? What's so unique about America? We just like to kill each other?
No. Taking away firearms won't do shit.
So why did it do
It's
shit in New Zealand, Norway, Japan? Why is it working there, but it won't work here? I'm trying to figure
they,
out what's the difference.
they must be more mentally healthy than we are in the United States. It's
Okay. So
it's
if
the
we're
mental
not
health.
mentally healthy here, do you think it's a good idea to allow everybody to get guns in an environment where people are not mentally healthy?
My stance on it is just like when you go get a driver's license, you got to go through classes, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got to go through driver's ed. You got to get X amount of hours behind the wheel. Let's
Right.
start doing that. Take
Mandatory training. You're saying mandatory training.
absolutely.
I don't disagree with that. That's another good concession for a. I mean, obviously you're a Second Amendment supporter, just like my last caller was. That also raising the age of. What about raising the age of maturity? Do you see any? Would you be
Nobody
willing
should
to?
nobody should get a gun until they at least turn 21.
Where the hell you guys coming from? I've been looking for you guys all my damn life.
Nobody
So
just like nobody
21.
just like nobody can drink a beer until they turn 21. Nobody
Yeah.
can get tobacco till they turn 21. Should be the age limit to get a gun. Shit, I think
Okay.
you should be. You can't get behind the wheel until you turn 21, honestly. But
So let me ask you your question back at you. By the way, folks, 30,000 likes. Don't let your thumbs be lazy. Tap the screen, MAGA friendly program, no banning, no censor, no blocking. In regards to your comment, Jordan, no one should be able to get a gun until turning 21. How do you respond to someone like yourself that might suggest, well, if you stop 18 and 19-year-olds from getting a gun, they'll just find another way to kill, so you shouldn't raise the age?
I mean, me personally, I feel like it's 21 should be the age to get a gun. You know, yeah, you're gonna say there's gonna be people out there that's gonna go out and get a knife or a bomb or dynamite, like a past caller.
Do
You know,
you really believe that? That if you ban guns, people were just going to start. I mean, because we've had a lot of folks committing
well, I
mass
mean,
casualty
look
events.
at. I live in Illinois. All right.
Okay, I'm from Chicago, 30 years there. I know quite. Yeah, go ahead though.
Okay, one of the strictest gun laws in the United States, Illinois
And
has.
nobody in Chicago is blowing themselves up. How many dynamite killings have you heard of in Chicago?
None. But I'm talking about the banning guns.
Right.
You can have the strictest gun laws you want. Look at Chicago. Every freaking weekend, there's
Yeah,
shootings.
but nobody in Chicago with those strict ass gun laws, New York strict ass gun laws,
Yeah,
California
look at
strict
New
gun
York.
laws. Nobody is buying dynamite to go blow up their neighbor. They're not using that method.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it
Okay, all right.
the strict, like if you ban guns or have strict gun laws, it doesn't matter. To me, it doesn't matter.
Well, and I agree with you, but I'll tell you why strict gun laws do not work. For strict gun laws to actually be effective, it has to be in an area that is quarantined. Meaning, Australia's strict gun laws really have reduced the amount of killing. So has Norway, so has Japan, because the entire country is quarantined. Meaning, you cannot get in or out of Japan without being searched for weapons. You can't get in and out of Australia, in and out of Norway or New Zealand without somebody searching you for weapons.
And
If
then,
Chicago has tough gun laws, which you know and I know, but you can go to Gary, Indiana, which you know and I know, and buy weapons and come back and
and
nobody
come back
searches you.
and do the same. Yeah, exactly.
But if you had Chicago quarantined, where to get in and out of Chicago, you had to be searched for weapons. Then the gun laws would have an effect. But the only way you can do that in America is it has to be a federal nationwide deal. Where coming in and out of the country, you get searched for weapons. But having these little localities that have strict gun laws, yeah, it means nothing because I can leave this area, go get a gun and come back and nobody searches my car. So yes, it's never going to work.
But and then my other question is, like, what do we do for the law-abiding citizens? You know, because according to the Second Amendment, it's our right to keep and bear arms. So,
well, in regards to the law-abiding citizen, and that's a good point that obviously a gun ban is going to affect law-abiding citizens. I would submit to you, law-abiding citizens is the whole scope of the problem. Like I said before, when you look at guns that are taken out of the hands of criminals, virtually every gun in the hand of a criminal, if you trace its origin, it started out with somebody who owned it legally. Criminals are getting guns by either buying them, stealing them, or finding them from somebody who originally owned it legally. So I'm not here to punish law-abiding citizens, but they are at the top of the pyramid supplying all the bad guys with weapons. As long as a good guy can get a weapon, a bad guy will always be able to get a weapon as well, because that's where they're getting them.
And your point on what do we do for schools? How about all the retired vets? Why don't we give them
the ones you want to put retired vets, the ones who come home with PTSD, the ones who are known for swallowing their guns at a high level of suicide. You want to put them in the schools?
Absolutely.
So in other words, we go from some random guy taking a bunch of kids' lives to now Sergeant Joe just did it.
Well, why wouldn't you do it though? I mean, I get
because you're going to get the problem we have now. Often folks are suggesting with police departments being too aggressive is you bring people that have served in war zones and then you put them out in the street as a cop to police regular people, and they bring the war zone mentality with them, and oftentimes people get roughed up or killed. Now you want to put them in schools too. You think that would be effective?
Okay, how effective is it right now, what we're doing?
I don't think it's very effective right now at all. I really don't. But when you look at what happened in Ubalde, where all of those officers stood down, you don't think there was any veterans in that crowd?
I'm sure there was.
Yeah. So I think that we definitely need to protect students, but I think the issue is we keep trying to solve this problem with more guns. Remove the gun-friendly zones. Put more guns here. Before you know it, the school bus driver is going to be carrying a gun.
Okay.
Or
okay.
Go ahead.
Take away all the guns and see how many people drives trucks through schools, or how many people bring a knife to school and stab people. Just take away all the guns and see what else they do to kill people.
But why isn't that happening? Because there are data examples of nations that have taken away the guns. Why isn't all of those school stabbings happening in those countries? They are democratic elected countries. Norway, New Zealand, Australia, they could easily vote and say exactly what you said. We took away the guns. People are still being killed. We want to vote guns back in. They are not voting their gun rights back in. I had an Australian on the program once that stated every now and then we get a politician that is promoting getting our gun rights back, and we shoot them down quickly because we see on the news how many of your kids are getting killed in schools, and we don't want that. So they can have gun rights back, and they're not pursuing it.
I don't know. I think it starts. I agree. It starts at home. Number one.
I don't disagree.
And something needs to be done about mental health. Like I said with driving, to get a license, you got to go through driver's ed. You got to take
mandatory training. I think listen, as far apart as liberals and conservatives are on gun issues, if I could have you or my last caller, I'm willing to take that because I do believe, even though that's not where I want to be, the concessions you're making would probably save a few lives. And I don't care if we go from
I think that's
100 dead to 90 dead. That's progress.
no. I don't think an 18-year-old can get a gun or should get a gun.
Yeah, that's progress.
I don't think
All
so.
right, Jordan, I do got to move it on.
I,
But
I
look,
appreciate you taking my call.
hey, and anytime you see me on, feel free to come back through, man.
I'm always in.
Appreciate you coming through.
Every
Hey, always a pleasure. All right. Okay, looking at the comments, we need to learn something. We not used to looking at other countries that do well. That's a what does that say? It's con peanut or something like that. That's a really good point. Being so damn conceited, having an ego that is so big that no one can tell you anything that would make you willing, that would lead you in the position where you're willing to listen to, even if they got a better idea than you. Did we not vote a president and it kind of felt like that? Nobody knows more than me. I don't know. Maybe in history, maybe back in the day we voted a president in once like that. But nevertheless, you should never feel like you are a know-it-all. You are so big, so high and mighty that no one can tell you anything that may be to your benefit. You have all the answers. You should never feel like that in any phase of your life. You can always learn more, which is kind of why I often do these programs, because even though I lean left, I really enjoy dialogue from the other side. The hat is always to show MAGA. You will be respected. You will be given your free speech rights here, because I don't believe you get those when it comes to the mainstream media. I believe oftentimes MAGA, conservatives, Republicans get banned, blocked, and censored pretty damn quick. I'll never do that here. So that's the purpose of the hat. But nevertheless, don't ever let your ego get so damn big that no one can tell you shit. That is the stance of the United States. And oftentimes, that's probably the reason we have so many problems here. But nevertheless, going back to the box. Tap the screen. Let your thumbs not be lazy. 700 plus. Maybe we can hit for 40,000 likes. I appreciate that. Greg's, or better yet, Salty Dog. I seen him in there first. We'll go to Salty Dog, and then we'll do the group. Salty Dog, good afternoon.
Hey, how you doing, man?
I don't even know, man. Yet another event. Talk to me.
Yeah, I heard you list off a couple countries that have strict gun laws or no guns at all, like Australia
Sure.
and Norway. And you asked a question, it's like, why are their numbers significantly lower than ours? Well,
right.
You also, I think it's more so the geographics of it. They're locked by sea. Like Australia's a big ass island, right? They're not gonna have can't get weapons. But you look at the U.S., we got the cartels pushing drugs across the border, and how long's weed and everything else is weed and everything else been illegal? We're still getting that in.
Yeah, but you think you think the drug game is what's leading to people being killed in schools?
No, I'm saying the fact that if you want to get rid of all the guns, we can't even kick out all the drugs in this country, but you're gonna ban guns, or you're trying to get rid of guns, but it's also getting pushed over. Guns and drugs are getting.
Well, let's tackle that in regards to the drug problem the United States has, and there's no denying the United States has a big drug problem. I would submit to you, after living in Australia for 5 years, there was nobody having trouble getting high. There were plenty of druggies in Australia. There's plenty of them in Japan, I'm sure. There are drug users in all of these countries. And by the way, one of the biggest issues we have in this country right now is opioids. That stuff is coming from our medical professions. Now, we're talking about fentanyl. We want to point to stuff coming across the border, but people get high in this country even if Mexico disappeared.
Yeah, and if we ban guns and lock down the borders, or Mexico disappeared, you would see a number drop significantly. I completely agree with that, and you're not wrong. Or we got 3D printers. They're gonna make their guns out of 3D printers.
Yeah, but you don't
right?
think you don't think the Mexicans and Hispanics are responsible for the vast majority of people losing their lives in this country to gun violence, do you? Hell, even in Mexico, I wonder, do they have the amount of school shootings we do in America? Are they even dealing with that there?
I think it's a lot of people for the school shootings portion of it. I think it's because we're soft because we got the internet now and people are doing cyberbullying. You know, there's a lot more drama. We're more privy to, uh, you know, bullyings and
Yeah,
harassments in
but
school. So
out of all the countries I named, they all have access to the internet. Hell, I bought Call of Duty when I lived over there. The versions that were coming out, I was buying them there. You can get an Xbox or a PlayStation with
yeah,
Call of Duty over there. I mean, they have access to all the stuff you just named.
okay, but I'm okay. But they're still having stabbings. You still have kids stabbing
Yeah, but it's
kids.
not even close. You think
That's not
Australia's the amount of children being stabbed in Australia schools is on par with the amount being shot in
not
America?
at all. But what I'm saying, you're still having acts of violence in those school systems. And I'm not. What I'm trying to get at is those countries that you're naming off are surrounded majority of it by water, so you can't. It's not as easy for them to get shipped guns because those shipments are getting searched. Now,
Mhm.
for what we're dealing with here is guns and everything else. So you cannot totally, completely ban or get rid of guns in America. I completely agree.
Let's, in regards to you talking about Australia and these other countries being islands and the geographic positioning of them, America has more folks losing their lives to this stuff than all of the Western Europe countries combined. And now we're not talking about an island or something. Now we're talking about a host of countries with a comparable population. I mean, I'm talking about everything from Spain to Germany to Italy. When you compare all of those countries together, we're losing more people.
Yeah, I believe I was going to say I agree with what the last two said about raising the age limit and also with locking it away in a safe area. I'm a veteran. I got 9 years in, one deployment in Afghanistan. So it is a problem. I think it's a society
Do
problem.
we want to solve it though? Let me ask you this question, and in the comment section, you guys can let me know your take on this too. Which one do you believe is more important? Protecting the Second Amendment or solving the problem? If you had to choose between one, I understand we want to deal with both of them, but when you look at what's happening, it's clear we only look in one. But in your opinion, which one do you believe is more important? Solving the amount of children and folks losing their life or protecting and defending the Second Amendment? Which one do you believe is more important?
Solving the problem. That's easy. But it
Which one do you think we're putting more effort into, though?
protecting the Second Amendment.
Yeah. So we're talking out the side of our neck.
Well, but we're protect. I mean, obviously, the number one priority should be protecting the kids and solving the problem, right? But
Yeah.
if you look through history, more people died that gave up their rights. I'm not saying one's versus. You're trying to lower the numbers of deaths and solve the problem, right? But what is that solving the problem? How would you go about that without taking away guns? Because you look through,
I don't think you
Hitler did
can.
it.
I don't think you, if you want to solve the amount of car accidents and deaths in this country without taking away cars, you cannot do it. If you want to solve the number of folks that are dying in car accidents without taking away cars, you cannot do that. We're trying to solve the number of children getting shot in schools and things like that without, not only are we not taking away guns, we're literally pouring guns into the mix and saying that we're going to solve this with more guns. Give the teacher a gun. In church, make sure the pastor has one. It's actually getting worse. So I don't know how you can solve this without some type of severe gun limitations.
Yeah, it's a very hard concept for a lot of people to wrap their heads around on it. Or try to solve it. Like my way of solving it may be different from your way of solving it, or
Give me some bullet points on your way of solving it. Give me some bullet points that you think might help with this.
I say, giving a teacher the training, the proper training. Just like I had to go through training for, to carry M4, 240 Bravo, stuff like that. I had to go through certain training to carry that. I say on the teachers.
So you want armed teachers? You want armed teachers?
I would say so, yes, because
would you hold the teacher accountable? Let's say, for instance, somebody got into the school, started shooting up the school, and the teacher did exactly what the Uvalde officers and the Parkland school officers did and took a cowering position. They got the gun. They're willing to protect their life, but they're not going to go out in the hallway with a guy firing AR rounds. How would you view the teacher that had the training, had the firearm, but did not defend the students? Are you going to punish this teacher?
They should do anything means necessary to protect the students. Like
But if they do not do that, what are you going to do to the teacher?
I'm not going to ask the teacher to run out in harms, or not run out and actively fight with and get in a gunfight with the active shooter. I'm saying lock the doors, grab the gun, and be ready to use it if necessary. It's in that situation. You got a means to protect the kids. All the kids are accountable.
But that's what I'm asking you. If the teacher is stepped away from the students for a minute or something, and someone is in there shooting up the classroom, and the teacher has the jump, they could go in the classroom and take the assailant out, maybe a couple rounds to the back or something while this person is doing that. But instead, the teacher stays in the bathroom and cowers. Are you going to punish that teacher for not doing that? In other words, is it going to become, once you carry a gun and have the training, are you now mandated to protect the children to your best effort?
I don't want to say yes, but I would honestly, I'll probably go with yes.
So how much are you going to raise their pay now that you're putting them in potential gunfights?
Shit, I don't even know what they make now. Damn.
They don't make enough for that shit.
Oh, absolutely.
I can tell you that.
Hey, you got privates in the military that are willing to do it for a lot less. I almost guarantee it.
Yeah, but when you join the military knowing that is the mission statement, or better yet, that's what your duties are in the military, is to protect the country. You don't become a teacher knowing your job duties are to potentially get in gunfights.
Yeah, that is true. No, I agree, but there definitely should be some type of, it's better than nothing. That's what I'm getting at. I think it's better than nothing. If they, not saying they get fired or lose their job or go to jail for it, but like, hey, dude, like, you had the opportunity. What the fuck? Like, some type of punishment should be.
Can you possibly see where this might lead a lot of people to start saying, I don't want to fucking teach anymore? If I got to put myself in this type of a position where I got to either get in a gunfight or have a bunch of parents threatening to beat my ass, maybe I don't want to teach. Maybe I'll go do something else. Do you see any possibility this could reduce the number of teachers enrolling in the profession?
I mean, there's a lot of homeless veterans that would love to take that role. That love
you want to go grab somebody out of a tent out in the middle of Santa Monica and put them in school of your kids?
I mean, let's be honest. No, let's be honest. Some of the military people out here, and a lot of them will agree, are very well spoken. They lost their jobs, went down a bad path, and they need help getting up. We care more about immigrants and other things, which we should, than our veterans that risk their lives to defend this country, right? Yeah. I mean, we agree. Yeah. It is sad. I'm not saying, like, they obviously need to go through, a psyche valve. Like, you don't want some teacher with PTSD teaching classes, right?
Yeah, but that is a category. When you talk about veterans, that is a category where a large percentage of them do have PTSD. You're literally picking fish out of the pond and saying, I don't want something with gills on it.
Not everybody with PTSD is going to snap and just go shoot up a school or shoot something. No,
and you're okay with that when it comes to your child. If the principal says, well, if the principal says not all of our shooters with PTSD is going to snap and kill your kid, you're okay with that?
No, I'm not saying that at all. Obviously you're going to have psyche valves before, or even grab a veteran that's, I don't know, homeless, train them up, put them through a psyche valve. Make sure that they're mentally stable. There's going to be you're going to have to, it's a rough draft. so you got to bear with me. But check the boxes, make sure that they're good to go, and put them as a security guard. We have security guards here in Georgia at the school. I'm not saying that they're great at it. I mean, my county, I don't think I've been but in one instance where a kid brought a gun to school and then nothing. It got shut down quick. We had procedures to go.
Man, you scaring the hell out of me. I gotta move it on, salty dog.
All right.
You scaring the hell out of me, man. Come on back through anytime. No, good talk.
All right.
Looking in the comments, you guys were pretty harsh on my last caller. You know, I try to keep a straight face, but sometimes when your comments come in, you guys can be really harsh. I don't talk down to my guests. I always believe in letting folks get their opinion across, even if I agree or disagree. But some of the shit you guys were saying. Oh, my Lord. Bless your heart. Bless your heart. Okay, keeping it going. Wait. So we have to put a possible guard through all of that, but not a gun on her. F that. That is a great point coming from Nainer in regards to the folks that would be protecting our children would be required to go through background checks, you know, making sure they are trained in the use of firearms and all of this excessive training. But you can turn 18 and buy an AK tomorrow. No training, no anything. That is a very legitimate point to make, which a couple of my callers have conceded points, including the last caller. One of them being mandatory training. I understand the ability or the right to own a firearm is an actual right at the age of maturity versus driving a vehicle is a privilege. So it's a difference between a privilege and a right, which is why you have to learn how to drive a car before they give you the keys, but you don't have to learn how to use a gun before they give you some rounds and a trigger. I do believe and strongly support mandatory training on the firearms you own. And I'll give you a story from my own past of my own late grandmother. When my grandfather passed away in 99, he was a World War II vet. Died to his dying day hating Japanese. He fought against them in World War II. Had guns all over the damn house. When he passed away in 1999, my grandmother, who had no experience with firearms at all, said that I want to keep one of these guns to protect myself. Wouldn't even know how to load it if it came down to it. But yet she is legally allowed to own a firearm. Eyesight, not the best. And by the way, you can own a firearm in America even if you do not have hands and feet. You can own a firearm legally if you do not have eyes. So when we talk about common sense gun laws, just understand that you do not need eyes in America to own a gun. So she wanted to keep a firearm. My cousin, who was a habitual felon, came over to the house and stole all of those other guns. So several of my grandfather's firearms are on the street, probably involved in felonies. This is why I point out, as a legal gun owner, you have a right to own as many firearms as you want, but chances are highly likely that those guns will survive you. And if your wife or your family members do not have the same enthusiastic interest in firearms as you do, this is where the street steps in and starts swallowing up guns. Happens all the time. But I'll go back to the box. It is Greg's house. I think that's what we were talking to. Yeah, Greg's house. Good afternoon. Welcome back to the program. Greg.
What is up, handsome?
Not much at all. What do you think, man? Do we care about this shit at all, or is this just the new norm?
I mean, obviously you know where I stand. We don't give a shit about it. We continue as our day goes by. Let's arm the teachers. Let's put veterans with PTSD out on the security force and train them. But don't train the teachers. Well, actually, tell the teachers what to teach the kids, and then train the teachers how to defend the schools. Like what? What? Like my parents taught for 30 years in public school. If you're asking my mom to carry a gun, my Lord, run for the hills, because I don't trust her with a gun at all.
Right, that's what I'm thinking. It's like you know, now we want to have the students. I mean, I guess if you got Ronda Rousey and Rambo in the classroom, maybe, but damn.
Yeah,
I mean, you think teachers would be okay with this, knowing that part of the job description is possible gunfights?
they would not be okay with this, and they would also hold on. Somebody's calling me. I had to decline it for now. They would not be okay with it because one, they don't get paid enough as it is.
Right.
So now you're
Pretend that
asking
hadn't worked
them
there.
now you're asking them to play cops and robbers essentially in school while
Yeah.
they're teaching. It's like, look, I understand why there is this. Obviously, it's a Second Amendment. I get it. Guns are cool. They make cool sounds. They're fun to collect. But one of the things that your one guy said was he said something like he had five AR-15s, and I'm thinking, what the hell you
Yeah.
need five AR-15s for? Isn't one enough? So like, is it a fetish? Do we fet? Is it like a sexual thing in this country? Are we?
Well, Jay Leno has over 100 vehicles. Maybe it's just a collector's type. It's one
I
of those
mean, I
because I can.
guess. I mean, I guess, but it's just it gets to the point where it's like this people forget that when this was written over 200 and I don't know, 40
Yeah.
years ago, nobody, I mean, everybody will make the argument, well, they had a gun that shot rapid fire. No, not like they did today. It was not
You
the same
know, in
thing.
regards to you pointing out if this was written over 200 years ago and how things have changed, I think I heard it on Joe Rogan's broadcast where he stated if it would be funny if we could go back in time and talk to Thomas Jefferson and he would look at us and say, you guys are still using that old ass document. I wrote that with a feather. Like, I can't
Yeah.
believe you ain't made any changes after all
It's
these
like
years. You
imagine
still
them
going
coming
by
back
that.
and going, "Oh my God, there's people with these guns that we used to take us 50 seconds to load up a bullet, and now they
Right.
got bullets and that's the problem. Like I'm all for concessions, and I'm getting over a cold, so don't mind me, but it's one of those things where you have at some point you have to make some sort of a change to protect
Right.
the well-being of others. And people say, well, that punishes me. Well, that's what happens.
But how do you
Unfortunately,
feel about folks suggesting that if we do something to our gun laws, like say Norway, Japan, and New Zealand, Australia, folks will just find another way and the killings will continue? How do you respond? Because that's a very common response.
well, I thought you answered it very well when you said, because the guy tried to bring Chicago. They love bringing Chicago into the argument. But
Chicago is a whipping boy. Chicago's
what
a
they
whipping boy.
fail
Yeah.
to understand is that Indiana has horrible gun laws. They just go over there and get them. Like you said, if they had a border around every state,
Mhm.
that searched your vehicle before you came back, yeah, you wouldn't have guns like that. And then
Yeah.
somebody tried to switch it to the border, saying, we're not doing well at the border. It's like
I
we
saw
are.
that.
Yeah, it's like that's a whole different topic altogether. And I'm pretty sure we've seized a lot of stuff at the border anyway. We could talk about that another day. But the thing is, the the reality is, I just think that people need to really put themselves in the shoes of a parent who has lost a child and understand how terrible that is, and
It's got to be
understand that the people at Uvalde, there were people there to protect them, and they
yeah.
didn't. And so then, how
Parkland,
does that?
Parkland, Florida. Parkland, Florida is another one where the cop was outside cowering behind a beam or support, while you can literally hear the gunshots going off. So he didn't go in that school either. But that is what they're supposed to do when there's an
Right.
active shooter scene, is run towards the danger. And he's like, "Fuck that." He didn't do it.
And there was I think there was, out of all the shootings that we've had in the past 7 or 8 years or so, I think only one of them, a good guy with a gun, actually had an impact, right? So
That's a really good point. That because this is what I often say. You hear where if you ban guns, people will find another way. Well, what about the notion if you give teachers guns or if you put veterans in schools, they'll find another way to get at the kids? What about recess? What about the bus home? What about the corner store, the mall they hang out in? If you truly believe criminals will find another way, then you'd have to submit that they're going to find another way to kill your kids, right?
right, and nobody's getting the other guy said something about dynamite. I don't even know where I could buy dynamite. Where do I even get dynamite? Do I go to Home Depot and get fertilizer? Like, I don't know. What is
Yeah,
that?
I don't get it. The dynamite thing is the fact is, in my opinion, and you folks can let me know where you think I'm getting it wrong, but the reason people choose guns is because guns make killing a lot easier. Yeah, you could find other ways. You could use a knife, you could use dynamite, you could use your car,
But you're
but at
not
the
gonna
end of
with
the
a
day,
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
With a knife, you're not killing people in rapid succession. You're not getting very
Yeah,
far, number one, because there's going to be somebody there who's going to tackle that person and it's
yeah.
over. You
Yeah,
know,
and that's the point. Yeah, that's the point. Is that I mean, I suppose if you're a strong adult. I mean, I'm 6'6", 300 pounds. If I can get in the classroom and lock the door, I probably could take out a lot of students. But nevertheless,
the comments are
nothing is
scaring me.
more.
People are saying that things are easy to make, and that's scaring me. But go ahead.
Yeah, but the thing is that folks are saying they're easier to make, but at the end of the day, people aren't doing that. That's very similar to the dynamite argument, or people will use a car. You can say that they'll have those other methods to use, but when you look at other countries, they're not selecting those methods. There's not a lot of kids getting ran over with cars in France or in
No.
these other countries. It happens. And that's I think the point is this. You'll never reach a zero fatality level. So as long as there's always one person that lost their life through an alternative method, they're going to say, well, see, they chose that other method. Meanwhile, we're having 12 mass shootings in American schools already this year. Okay, so if somebody gets ran over with one car, one child passes away in Europe somewhere, it's not comparable. It's just not. But they're trying to argue from a standpoint, well, you haven't reached zero yet.
Right. And the last thing I wanted to add was just that I'm pretty sure, and I will say I could be wrong, but when the Second Amendment was adopted, I don't believe the U.S. had a military, correct?
Not of any significance. I don't,
So
what,
so
1787. I mean,
so
well, we would have had something, but
but I
certainly
thought that it was because it was to protect against other,
the
like
English.
England, right? I mean,
Yeah, the
England
English.
coming back to hurt us and was like, yeah, you can have a
Yeah,
gun just in case King George decides that he
yeah.
wants to come dancing back. But it's just, so that's what I believe it to be.
Yeah.
So
Well, but also too, in regards to having a gun to stave off tyranny, I mentioned this earlier that when you look at minorities and women not being able to vote or have any type of rights, America's been tyrannical almost its entire history. I mean, when did Martin Luther King get the civil rights act? 1964. When did gays get allowed to be able to marry each other? So tyranny has been taking place right alongside, running parallel to the Second Amendment the whole time this country has been in place. However, my other argument, when folks talk about fighting off a tyrannical government, I guess they see images of like what happened in the movie Red Dawn. But when you look at a truly tyrannical, a leader that is truly tyrannical, we're talking Hitler, Saddam Hussein, Stalin. We're talking using gas. We're talking using aircraft. We're talking using things, biological weapons, smoking people from the air. Nothing you have on your closet shelf is going to defend you against that. Nothing.
no, no, I understand. And there's people in your comments trying to make this, you know, I'm reading them as it goes by. They're saying, well, he's a convicted felon at MSU and he's black. Who cares? It's the gun. It
Yeah.
again, it's the gun
He's
killing
not a
people.
convicted felon. I didn't see anything in his record that said he was a convicted felon.
Oh, well, of course. I mean, I don't know where they're
He's
getting their
not.
information.
He
Might
was
be.
he received probation and a misdemeanor charge in 2019 for carrying a firearm without a concealed permit. That's all I seen on this guy's jacket, and I just looked it up before doing this show.
Right. And
He's
I
not
and
a
I
felon.
trust you. I trust you on that,
Yeah,
not
he's not. Yeah,
somebody.
he's not a felon. They're making that up. He's black. I
But
guess that
that's
means if you really want to
but
hate, I guess being black is all you need to go with. But yeah,
right.
he
And
wasn't a
one last
convicted
thing, I
felon.
know you got to get it moving on, and I'm sorry. One last thing. So
Sure.
the argument is always, what about Chicago? What about gang violence? What about this? What about that? It's like,
Yeah.
do you understand the big picture? Do you understand that the problem is guns? Doesn't matter what race it is. It doesn't matter if it's white people going and shooting up a synagogue. It doesn't matter if it's black people in the, streets killing each other. We need to manage that better. So it's that's the bigger issue. It's not. It has nothing to do with skin color. It doesn't. They don't
No.
discriminate. They don't
No, I,
discriminate.
yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah, I don't know where skin color come, but
I'll let you go though. I'll
as they
let you
say,
go,
haters are
but
going to hate. All right,
always love
Greg.
being on.
Absolutely, come on back through anytime. And as folks, you know what I say around this time. This is indeed a lunch break live. At the end of the day, my personal analysis, once again, with yet another mass casualty event, is we are going to talk a lot of shit and do nothing. I believe there was a song that once stated, talking loud, saying nothing. Now, I asked a number of folks in the audience at the time, which one is more important, solving the issue of children losing their lives in schools or protecting the Second Amendment. Almost overwhelmingly, the response was saving children's lives in schools. But then when I followed up with the question, which one are we putting the most amount of effort into? Defending the Second Amendment or protecting the lives of children in schools? There was no choice but to admit the fact that we are fighting harder to defend the Second Amendment than the children in schools. So when folks suggest that it is more important to protect children in schools than defend the Second Amendment, they're essentially talking out of the side of their necks. They're saying one thing, but in reality, they're doing something different. The ability to own a firearm in America has gotten consistently easier, even with liberals in office, even with cities like Chicago, where you now can legally own a firearm. It has continued to become easier and easier in this country to own a firearm, and the number of deaths that we are discussing is going up. Is there zero correlation between these two events? The fact that one is going up and the other one is following it, and one is actually being used to do the other event, but yet they have no relationship to each other at all. I would invite you to do your own homework, maybe perhaps talk to a statistician, who knows? But nevertheless, I do appreciate the fact that you've been rolling with your boy. You could be anywhere you want to be on social media. You're here with me, and it's always an honor. It's your boy Tim. I got to go. Catch you later.